Welcome to episode 3. My name is Lauren.
And I'm Sabrina.
And this is Bloodline. So today we are going to be talking about the Vampire of Sacramento, aka Richard Chase. And I just want to make a quick little side note here. This is disturbing content.
Jesus.
More disturbing than normal. I mentioned at the end of the last episode that I didn't know if I was going to do this case or not. I sent it. So here we are.
Send it.
So this is probably going to be the worst thing ever. Like, as far as bad as, like, as graphic as things get. We might as well just get it out of the way, you know? So everything from here on out will just not seem as bad.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it, for sure.
Right, exactly.
If you don't know us personally, I'm more of a gentle being, if you will, than Lauren. So I'm nervous. And we'll just see how this goes. I'm drinking wine, so I think that'll help.
Yeah, okay. Well, she'll survive. It's fine.
Thank you for your concern.
I just feel like no one ever talks about this case, and, like, it blows my mind. I don't even remember how I found out about it, but I found out about it, like, years ago, and ever since then I've just been like, what the fuck? And, like, I just needed to tell someone about it. So this is why that we're doing it here, because you're forced to listen to me.
Do you know if there's been any, like, Criminal Minds episodes that have been, like, reminiscent of it? Because I feel like they like to do that kind of crazy, like, gory stuff.
Yeah, there wasn't, according to, like, usually on Wikipedia, like, I know Wikipedia is not a great source, but it always has, like, TV shows that have had episodes, like, based on it. There wasn't one for Criminal Minds, but there is a movie that came out that was apparently based on it called Rampage, but I've never heard of it.
Yeah, me neither.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
So as far as I know, they haven't, but I mean, they might have taken something from it and put it in some episode, but not that I know of specifically. Richard Trenton Chase was born in Sacramento, California in May of 1950, and he was, let's say, disturbed. He was a disturbed kid.
Disturbia!
By the time he was... Disturbia by Rihanna played when he walked into a room. So by the time he was 10 years old, he was already showing signs of the McDonald triad. Do you know what that is, Sabrina?
I feel like I've heard of it. Is it, like, harming animals? Is that one of them?
Yeah, so most of you probably know what it's all about, but just in case, I'll go over it quick. It's basically just, it's also known as the homicidal triad. And it's a set of 3 factors, which are cruelty to animals, obsession with setting fires, and then a persistent bedwetting.
Okay.
Past, like, the normal age, not when you're, like, a baby. And the point of the McDonald triad is basically to make the connection that if, like, someone's doing 2 or 3 of these things in combination, it's a sign that they might have violent tendencies later in life. It's also, a lot of people say, like, these people will specifically be homicidal or sexually predatory, or they'll become serial killers, things like that. There are, like, quite a few studies that show that this is not even really, like, a thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's talked about a lot, and I just wanted to mention that he was already showing those signs. So, he was already showing all 3 of the signs. Which, I mean, it's not a telltale sign that someone's gonna become a murderer, but it's definitely something. Mm-hmm. And both of Richard's parents were really strict with him, and his father was actually physically abusive with him. I feel like this is also something that's, like, in common with a lot of serial killers or murderers, is that they have childhood trauma. So there was also that as a contendant.
Yeah, for sure.
Here comes the next contestant.
Oh my God. It took us only 3 episodes to sing Nickelback on this podcast. I'm so happy about that.
Okay, so I'm so sorry. As he grew a little older into his teenage years, mental health problems started surfacing more and more. Not good.
Okay.
But this wasn't just like being a moody teen, you know, like no. Let me just explain. So he was a hypochondriac, but not just like mild hypochondria where he's like, oh my god, I think I'm sick. Like, you know, like I have friends who are hypochondriacs and like it's not like that, okay? It was really bad. So here are some examples. These are awesome. I love them. He sometimes said that his heart would occasionally stop beating, or, this is my favorite one, he would tell someone that someone had stolen his pulmonary artery.
Ew, dude.
Like, imagine your teen kid comes up to you and they're like, Mom, someone stole my pulmonary artery. Like,
and you're like,
bro,
honey,
what?
that just means you're in love.
Oh, no. I don't know what it means.
That just
but
sounds
not
like
that.
something some dramatic kid would say that, like, is in love
Well, when
with
he's
someone.
like, it's like, my heart skipped a beat or something.
But, like, me, I don't know.
Some of these things I could maybe understand saying. Not that, like, I would ever say I would never accuse someone of stealing my pulmonary artery, but, like, maybe he had, like, a heart murmur or something
like, the
of
heart
that
skipping a
nature.
beat thing, like, when I said me, I was, like, serious. Like, I feel like sometimes my heart, like, does random shit, you know?
No, yeah.
We all know that you know
about my
heart
heart.
things. Heart problem.
Exactly. So, like, if he has a heart murmur, that's okay, but, like, so do I. But, what it sounds like to me is that maybe he had a heart murmur or something like that, and that his mental state kind of, like, amplified that and turned it into, like, this bigger thing. But besides that little, you know, kind of defending him right there, he also had a habit of taking oranges and holding them against his head because he thought that his brain would be able to absorb vitamin C from the orange through his head, like through his skull. And here's one last little one that he had. He thought that his cranial bones had separated and were moving around inside of his head. So because of that, he actually shaved his head so that he could monitor and watch their activity.
Oh boy. Okay, so he has some serious issues.
So it wasn't just like, yeah. So he did have a few friends, surprisingly. And he dated women from time to time, but their relationships never lasted very long because his behavior and his thinking was just kind of wacky. At one point, Richard became aware of his problems, and he's like, maybe I should see a psychiatrist, which, like, good on ya, Richie. So he goes, and he's like, help me. But basically, instead of helping him, the psychiatrist was like, I can't help you because your problems are just a result of severe mental disorders and repressed anger. Which, like, isn't that your job?
Yeah, what the hell?
Like, if it was a result of severe mental disorders, that would make it more your job. So I don't really know. I think the guy was just probably like, yo, what the fuck? Like, he couldn't even fathom
maybe it was, like, outside of his, like,
do.
scope of specialty or something, but then at that point you'd think you would just refer him to someone else, maybe, or...
I mean, this was, like, you know...
Back in the olden days.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Well. Yikes.
So anyways, he tried to get help, which is sad because it didn't work.
Yeah, that is sad.
And so after he turned 18, he moved out of his parents' house and he moved in with some other guys because he thought his mom was trying to poison him. She wasn't trying to poison him. And this also didn't last long, this arrangement, because his roommates claimed that he was constantly under the influence of something, whether that was alcohol, marijuana, LSD, and he would always walk around the house completely naked, even when they had, like, company over. So, needless to say, his roommates got sick of this pretty quickly, and they were like, you gotta move out. But Richard stayed in the apartment, and he refused to move out.
Oh my god.
So... instead, the roommates all moved out of the apartment and left Richard there alone. So obviously they were pretty desperate to get away from him.
Yeah.
So they all just dipped because he wouldn't leave.
Damn.
So now he's living
I feel bad for him. He has
alone
to
in
pay
this...
all that rent.
Oh, don't worry. He doesn't pay it. His mom does.
Okay.
So now he's living alone in this apartment, which made his mental state just get so much worse. So... okay, this is where it starts getting bad.
Okay, I'm scared. I'm buckling up.
So,
hang on, I have to buckle my seatbelt. Hold
buckle
on a
up.
second.
Put your seatbelts on. Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
he started capturing animals regularly, and he would kill and disembowel them. He would then eat it either raw, or he'd put the raw organs into a blender with Coke. Like Coca-Cola, not like cocaine.
Yeah.
And blend it up and drink it. Make like a little cocktail.
Oh, God.
But of course, he had a reason for this, okay? He had a reason. It was because if he drank it, he was preventing his heart from shrinking.
Of course.
Which, like, okay, guy. If anything, this is making your heart tiny and shrinking it like the Grinch. Like, what? So yeah, that's why he was doing it, because he claimed that it would stop his heart from shrinking. So I guess his hypochondria was still a big issue. And he often ended up in the ER because he thought he was, like, severely ill or something was wrong with him, like someone stealing his pulmonary artery.
Yeah, it sounds like he could be, like,
or here's a new one.
schizophrenia or something like that. Like, it's not just...
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That will come into play. Here's a new one for his hypochondria situation. He also sometimes thought that his stomach was backwards, whatever that means. So eventually in 1976, he was 26 years old, and he landed himself in the hospital again because this time he had injected rabbit's blood into his veins.
Oh, God.
So the doctors are like, what the fuck, Richard? So he's involuntarily placed into a mental institution. And while he was there, the staff ended up giving him the nickname Dracula because of his obsession with blood, obviously. Also, this part is just so freaking weird to me. I don't know how it happened, but somehow he was able to stick his arms out the window of his, like, institution, and he caught 2 birds that were flying by.
What?
He caught them with his hands, and he snapped their necks and drank their blood.
Oh, my God.
I don't know how he did that, and I don't know how he could get his arms out the window. Like, did they not have bars on the window? I don't really know.
Maybe it was, like, a situation where there's, like, a ledge or something, and, like, pigeons, like, sat on the ledge, and then, like, if there's bars in the window, maybe he just was, like, reached his hands to the bars and, like, grabbed them really quick.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yikes. Also, he would, during this time when he was there, he would steal syringes from, like, the nurses and stuff. And he would use them to extract blood from the therapy dogs that were there.
No.
Yeah. So Richard was medicated with a variety of treatments involving psychotropic drugs. In parentheses, I have Sabrina, help. I don't know what a psychotropic drug is.
Psychotropic. It's just like a psych drug, basically.
Okay, yeah. When I looked it up, it said it included things like crack cocaine, Ritalin, peyote, MDMA, and codeine, stuff like that.
What? No. Those are just...
What? Yes, that's literally what it said.
What the hell? No, like, psychotropic drugs are, like, drugs that you get prescribed for mental health disorders, like Lexapro, Zoloft, like, Remeron, like, all these...
What the
I don't know why it's saying crack cocaine. It's like, maybe it's saying, like... Or did you look up psychedelic drugs or something like that?
No,
okay.
No.
Well, psychotropic drugs are drugs for, like, mental health.
I mean, it didn't say that he was being prescribed crack cocaine and peyote.
Yeah.
It just said, like, I looked up a different search. I just typed in, like, what are psychotropic drugs?
Maybe that's just a broader term than, like, for drugs that can affect your, like, mental state, because... In my job, we always talk about psychotropic drugs, and it's like Xanax, you know what I mean?
It's like stuff.
Yeah. So it's not like...
Okay, so he was probably not given peyote or MDMA or codeine, but maybe something like Xanax or, you know, whatever.
So what was the context? He was given that at the facility?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they just had him on a variety of different medications.
Yeah, so just, like, normal stuff. Probably, like, some antipsychotics and stuff like that. They put him on because he was obviously having, like, delusions and things.
Right. He obviously was, yeah. So, unfortunately, though, the treatments didn't seem to be doing anything. So, instead of being like, you know what, we should try something else. We should put him on something else, or maybe we should try a different, you know, kind of treatment. They were like, yeah, actually, I think he's fine.
What?
So they're like, he's, like, no longer a threat to society. Like, he can go. Like, he's fine. He's all good. So the deadass released him to go live with his mom, which, like, guys, come on. Don't be like that right now. So He was prescribed some medication that he was supposed to keep taking even after he left the institution, and that was for schizophrenia. But once he was released, his mom just decided that he didn't need them and stopped giving him the medicine. So she kind of just...
Oh, great.
Obviously, he wasn't well enough to, like... Yeah, he wasn't well enough to be like, you're right, I should keep taking this, even if you're saying that I shouldn't.
Yeah, so she was supposed to manage his meds, and then she was like, no, you're
Yes,
good.
100%. Like, I think part of the reason that they released him was because, like, he was supposed to be living with her and under her care, and, like, you know, she would be making sure he was taking his medicine and all that stuff, which obviously she did the opposite of that.
Oh, God.
His mom also helped him find an apartment so that he could live on his own, which, like, honey,
Again,
that's
like,
not a good idea. We all know what happened last time. So they find him an apartment, and she's like, sweetie, I'll pay for your rent, I'll pay for your groceries, everything like that, because, like, he was not well. Like, he couldn't get a job. So, yeah. So he's living by himself. Yikes. So then in August of 1977, Nevada State Police find Richard's vehicle lodged into a sand drift near Pyramid Lake, Nevada. And so they're like, what the fuck? There's just this, like, abandoned car. So they start searching through it, and they find 2 rifles, a pile of clothes, a bucket of blood,
Oh, God.
and a cow's liver. So obviously they're like, yo, what the fuck? We gotta find this guy. And they do. They track him down. And they find him naked and screaming in the sand, soaked in blood from head to toe.
Oh, no.
And they're like, they ask him, like, what the fuck? And he's like, he claims that the blood he's soaked in is actually his own blood, and that it had leaked out of him through his flesh.
Oh, he probably, I mean, he might have actually believed that was true.
No, I 100% think he probably did.
Yikes.
Although, like, he obviously killed a cow and got the blood himself.
Yeah, right.
Because it was discovered that the bucket of blood in the car was cow's blood. So my guess is that the blood he was covered in was also cow's blood.
And you said this was 1977? Okay,
yes.
So he's like 27 right now.
Yeah, this is in August of 1977. And then a couple months later, in December of 1977, he fires a .22 handgun into the home of a Sacramento woman, just some random lady.
God.
He doesn't know her. He just shoots into her house. And so the lady calls the police, and she's like, someone just shot into my fucking house. And so the police come, and they're like, what the hell? And they find the bullet in her kitchen. No one was harmed, thankfully. But they didn't know who had fired the shot, because Richard just drove away, and, like, she didn't see anything.
Yeah.
And there was no one there, so they had no idea who did it. So he just got away. So 2 days later is when he begins his murder spree.
Oh, God.
So, yeah. On December 29th, 1977, he killed Ambrose Griffin, who was a 51-year-old engineer and father of 2. And Richard killed him in a drive-by shooting. So Ambrose had been in the driveway helping his wife bring groceries inside when Richard shot and killed him.
Oh, my God.
And while the police were investigating, one of Ambrose's sons told the police that he had seen one of their neighbors walking around the neighborhood with a .22 rifle earlier that week. So the police go and they find this neighbor and they take his gun and, like, look at it and everything. But it's determined that this was not a match to the bullet that killed Ambrose.
Okay.
But they did make the discovery that the bullet that killed Ambrose matched the bullet that had been fired into that house 2 days ago.
Okay.
So they know that it's, like, from the same gun,
Yeah.
possibly from the same person, but they still don't know who's fired the shots because he just drove away. So Richard's still just running free. And he later actually called the murder of Ambrose Griffin a, quote, warm-up for the crimes he planned on committing.
Oh, my God.
So that's fucked up. So, a little over 2 weeks later, on January 11th, he asks his neighbor for a cigarette. And she's like, yeah, sure. She gives Richard a cigarette, but then Richard forcibly restrains her until she gives him the entire pack.
Jeez.
So he's just, like, wildin' at this point. Like, even over little things like that. And she agreed to give him a cigarette, and then he still did that.
I don't want one cig. I want all of them.
Yeah, so... that poor woman, she was like, maybe if I just give him a cigarette, like, he'll go away.
Yeah.
And then she gives him a cigarette, and he's like, no, give me all the cigarettes. So, yeah, but she was fine. She wasn't harmed. Like, I mean, she was probably traumatized, but it's not like he killed her or anything, thank God. So, yeah. And then 2 weeks later, he attempts to enter another home of a woman, but her doors are locked, so he's like, never mind. He walks away. And later, actually, he tells detectives that locked doors were a sign that he wasn't welcome, while unlocked doors were an invitation to come inside.
Oh my god. Always lock your doors, people.
Which, like, I just realized this right now, but isn't it a thing where, like, in, like, folklore or whatever, like, vampires have to be invited into your home to step foot inside? Like, they physically can't enter your home until the person says, come inside, or why don't you come on in, or, like,
I don't know.
Something like that. Like, it's something with, like, folklore.
There's that one Disney movie that's, like, my mom's got a date with a vampire, and that's the only reason why I would know that.
Good source.
Yeah, but I feel like that sounds familiar. But yeah, I don't know. Rings a bell.
I'm fairly positive that that's a thing. So I don't know if he was, like, maybe subconsciously thinking of that, or he was just, I don't even know, just being weird, wild.
Yeah, that would make sense, though.
So,
good connection.
Thank God that lady had, yeah, I didn't even think of that until right now when I was saying it out loud, and I was like, wait a minute. So thank God that lady had her doors locked. But, like, also, guy, have you ever heard of trespassing? You still can't just go into someone's house if the door's unlocked. Like, if the door's unlocked, that doesn't, So anyways, while he's gallivanting around the town, he runs into a girl he went to high school with. Her name was Nancy Holden. And he's like, Nancy, can you give me a ride? But she's spooked by his appearance, like, which God knows what he even looks like at this point. And so she refuses to give him a ride. Because she's scared, obviously.
Good choice.
So, yeah. So in a rage, he fucking goes down the street and breaks into a house. And, which, like, dude, I thought locked doors meant you weren't welcome. Like, maybe the door was unlocked, it didn't say, but I don't know. Saying breaking in makes me feel like you...
Yeah.
Like, busted in a window or some shit. But anyways, he gets into the home of a young married couple who weren't there at the time. And he steals some of their valuables, and then, prepare yourselves for this one, folks. He pees into a drawer of their infant's clothing, and then he shits on their bed. The son's bed.
Ew.
Yeah. So, while this is happening, they're not home, but they return home while he's still in the house.
Oh god.
And the husband starts attacking Richard, but Richard gets away.
That's so gross, dude.
So he just gets away. Yeah.
Also, that reminds me of, what a cat would do. Like, when you said he peed in a drawer, I was like, cat.
Yes, he's a cat.
A cat dog. Like, not only did you get robbed, but you also have to, like, clean up someone's shit now.
Yeah, that's fucking disgusting. Can you imagine walking in and, like, you're like, oh my god, a robber, and then you're like, wait, what are they doing? But yeah, so he got away. No one got harmed again. I mean, obviously traumatizing, but he gets away. So after this, he continues to attempt to enter houses until he comes across one that's unlocked. So he arrives at the home of David and Teresa Wallen. And David was at work at the time, but Teresa was 3 months pregnant, and she was in the middle of taking out the garbage, so her front door was unlocked. Because she was, like, in the midst of literally going outside and putting the garbage in the dumpster. So, yeah. And then, while she was putting the garbage out, he sneaks into her house and surprises her once she comes back inside and shoots her 3 times.
Oh my god.
He shoots her once in the hand, which was a defensive wound because she was trying to defend herself. And then twice in the head, which killed her. And he used the same gun that he used to kill Ambrose Griffin. Which, like, dude, you're gonna get linked to all these crimes.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it was the same gun that he used for that other drive-by that didn't kill anyone.
Yeah, it was the same gun for all 3. So, he then dragged Teresa's body into her bedroom and sexually assaulted her while repeatedly stabbing her with a butcher knife. After that, he cuts open her body so that he could remove her organs and use a bucket to collect her blood. Because, of course, he's got to get the blood. So once there's enough blood in the bucket, he's like, yeah. So he doesn't drink it, though, okay? He goes in the bathroom and he bathes in it.
Oh, my God.
Which just reminds me of that episode of American Horror Story where that lady, like, paints the blood on her face because she thinks it's going to make herself live forever or whatever. Spooky stuff. So after his little bloodbath, he returns to Teresa's body and he cuts her nipple off and drains the blood out of it. And he uses an empty yogurt container as a drinking cup, and he drinks the blood out of an empty yogurt container.
Ew.
And this is the worst part.
Oh, that wasn't even the worst part.
Well, actually, that was probably worse. I don't really know. I mean, I guess it's all up
relative,
for interpretation.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, but before he leaves for good, he goes into the yard, picks up some dog shit, and then he goes back inside, and he stuffs it in her mouth and throat.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
Yeah, and, like, this sounds bad, but, like, I'm so glad she was dead when all this happened.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that he didn't do it, like, he didn't do all this torture stuff before he killed her, because, like, holy fuck. Like, she already went through enough. She doesn't need to experience all this shit before dying, too. Like,
yeah. Oh my god, that's terrible.
So, yeah, she went through it, and he was insane. So then he leaves. And then 2 days later, he purchases 2 puppies from his neighbor and kills them, drinks their blood, leaves the bodies in the neighbor's front yard.
Oh my god.
Like, bruh. Which, like, there are just so many things in this, like, you can't really call it a case, because it's literally just, like, his life. Where, like, I'm like, how did he not get caught?
Yeah.
Like, especially that, like,
yeah, because
he buys puppies from his neighbor.
Right.
Yeah, wouldn't the neighbor call the police if he killed puppies, or were they just like, Like, I would. I definitely would. I'd be calling 911.
Unless they, like, oh yeah, it was his neighbor, so yeah, they would obviously, because I was going to say, unless someone bought the puppies and they didn't really know who he was, but obviously they knew who he was, because they were neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, he lives in an apartment building,
Oh.
so, like, maybe they didn't know, but, because it was probably, like, the person who lived, like, by the apartment building or something. But still, like, you'd probably be able to put 2 and 2
Or at least you'd
together.
have a description of him and stuff, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And he probably looked odd.
So, yeah. Exactly. Like, you'd be able to tell that he was probably the one who did it. But anyways, 4 days after that, he enters the home of 38-year-old Evelyn Miroth, who was babysitting her 22-month-old nephew. And I just want to add really quick. When I was researching this man, this embodiment of Satan, I misread the age of Evelyn's nephew, who's 22 months old, and read it as 22 years old. And I was like, why is she babysitting a 22-year-old? But then I realized I'm just an idiot. But, you know, maybe if people wouldn't if they would just say that their baby was 1 or almost 2, then that wouldn't have happened.
I was, like, calculating in my head.
Those moms who are like, yeah, my baby is 67 months.
Yeah.
Like, bro,
I was literally just thinking about
anyways,
that.
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to stall because it's so horrible what I'm about to say.
God.
So he enters the home. Evelyn's inside with her 22-month-old nephew named David, her 6-year-old son, Jason, and her neighbor, Dan Meredith, who had stopped by the house to check on her. And I guess Evelyn was in the bath. She was taking a bath while Dan was watching the children. So, like, he just came over to give her, like, a little break or whatever, which is when Richard entered the home. So Dan hears someone come inside the house, so he walks into the front hallway, and Richard shoots him point blank in the head with his .22, killing him. Then he turns over Dan's body and steals his wallet and his car keys. So Jason, which is Evelyn's son, runs to his mom's bedroom to hide, but Richard starts to follow him. And on his way to Evelyn's bedroom to kill Jason, he encounters David, the nephew, and he shoots and kills him as well.
No.
Then he makes it to Evelyn's bedroom and shoots Jason twice in the head at point blank range as well, killing him. So at this point, he's already killed 3 people inside this house. So this is technically a murder spree at this point. So after killing Jason, he enters the bathroom where Evelyn's bathing and fatally shoots her once in the head. He then drags her body into her bedroom and sexually assaults her while simultaneously drinking her blood from several cuts he had made on the back of her neck.
Oh my god.
Then he stabs her, she's already dead. But he stabs her a dozen times, stabbing her in places which would cause her blood to pool up into her abdomen, which was obviously intentional by Richard so that he could, harvest the blood. So he sliced her abdomen open and drained all the blood into a bucket, which he then drank.
Oh, God.
All of it.
Oh, God. I'm gonna pass out.
I know. He then goes back to David's body and splits his skull open in the bathtub and consumes some of the brain matter.
Oh, my God.
Okay. The thing that really gets me and interests me about this case, or like this man, is what is the motive?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that.
Like,
especially with the whole, drive-bys, because he wasn't getting anything out of that. He wasn't getting any blood out of that.
Like, he wasn't seeing them die. Yeah, and he wasn't seeing them die. He wasn't, it's not like it was, a sadist thing where he's like, I'm watching them in pain. Like, I literally don't know. Like,
and he
explains
never,
a little bit later.
Tortures them either. It's like, he kills them first.
Yeah, he tortures them after they're already dead. So it's like, if you wanted them to experience all that pain and horror, you'd do it before you killed them. So yeah, it's really weird. And he says a few things later on when they're talking to him about why he did it, but none of it really makes sense. So this whole time I'm just like, why the fuck? And while there is sexual assault going on, so it seems like there is a sexual motive, that's not always the case. He still shot that man who was in his driveway randomly.
Yeah, right.
And fired a shot into that lady's house and didn't enter her home. So it just seems like the sexual assault's an afterthought. That's not the driving reason why he's doing it. But yeah, so while he's chewing on some brains, a 6-year-old girl who had a planned play date with Jason knocked on the door of the house.
No.
And this spooked Richard. Because he's like, what's going on? Do. And it caused him to flee the residence. So that little girl actually kind of did awesome. She didn't get hurt. She knocked on the door and he was like, fuck, and he ran away. But before leaving, he grabs David's body and he brings it with him. Just a little souvenir. And since he had taken Dan's keys, he steals Dan's car and drives off in that. And the little girl who was knocking on the door sees some crazy-ass man driving away frantically in this stolen car, so she's like, so she tells a neighbor, and the neighbor decides to break into the home.
Oh, jeez.
To, see if everything's okay, which, I would immediately just call the cops. But he breaks into the home and finds the bodies, and at that point, he calls the police. Once the police arrive, they discovered that Richard had left perfect handprints and perfect imprints of the soles of his shoes in Evelyn's blood. So, it also just seems like he was so careless in, his crimes. It almost seems like he didn't care if he got caught.
Yeah, I don't think he was even thinking about that. I think he was just, frenzied.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem like it crossed his mind to clean up the scene or...
Nothing's planned. He just, does things randomly.
Right.
He just has these urges and then he just does what he wants to do because of these urges and he doesn't, think about anything, it doesn't sound like.
No, definitely not.
He's like an animal, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which also, goes back to the whole thing where he, peed and shit in that person's house. It's literally, animalistic.
Yeah, it's... and it's just, why? But, we'll get there. So, meanwhile, while the police are looking at the crime scene, Richard's back at his own apartment with David's body. And he decides to chop off Davis's penis. David's. Did I say Davis?
Yeah.
I got so just overwhelmed in that moment. He chops off David's penis so that he could use it as a straw to suck blood out of the body.
Oh my god.
So then he cuts open the body and consumes some of the organs, makes some little smoothies out of them like he does, and then he disposed of the body at a nearby church.
Oh
so,
my god.
After Teresa had been murdered, that first lady who was taking out the garbage and stuff, The FBI had been called in to investigate the murder. So we're getting a little, like, Criminal Minds here, guys. So they made up the profile of the unsub.
Oh, yeah.
And their profile was this, okay? I'm delivering the profile now. The killer will be tall, malnourished, a loner, physically unclean, and most importantly, he will continue to kill. So they delivered this profile to the media.
It's like they zoom in on
like
someone
Hotch,
and then they're like,
it.
and he's not going to stop until we stop him.
Exactly, yes. Oh my god. So, literally Criminal Minds ass shit up in here, okay? So, they deliver the profile, and it goes out to the media. So, 5 days after the mass murder that happened at Evelyn's house, Nancy Holden, do you remember Nancy Holden?
Yes.
She's the girl who Richard went to high school
with,
and he ran into her, and he was like, give me a ride, and she was all like, hell no.
Yeah.
So, Nancy Holden hears the FBI's profile, and she calls the police, and she's like, you know what? I think I know who you're talking about. Which, like, dude, that's, like, I feel like if that was me, I would be like, no, it couldn't be him.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a broad, like, profile.
Yeah,
like,
just like every profile.
I mean, it is specific.
It's
It's specific, but not, like, I don't know.
The malnourished part is the one part where it's a little bit more, like, specific. Everything else is like the same as every other profile. We're looking for a white male. He's a loner. He doesn't have any friends. It's like, well, yeah, probably not if he's like a mass murderer.
Well, no, sometimes they're like, he would fit in with the normal community.
Oh, yeah.
He's charismatic.
Yeah,
like, you know?
True,
so, but anyways, so she thinks that the profile matches. So she calls police and tells them. And so they run a background check on him. And this is when they discover that he had a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol registered to his name. And at that point, they're like, bingo, because they know that this is the kind of gun that was used in all these murders. So they're like, yo, maybe she's right. So the police go, and the FBI go to Richard's apartment, and this is also, like, a thing that's just, like, Criminal Minds is fucked. They're like, we just want to talk. Like, literally, I was watching Criminal Minds yesterday, and JJ screamed, like, she went into this tunnel with her gun, and she screamed, we just want to talk, as she had her gun out, and I was like,
oh my god.
You don't just want to talk. And then she got shot at.
Oh my god, spoiler alert.
So, she didn't actually get shot, she just got shot at.
Okay.
She gets shot at in, like, every episode.
Yeah.
They all do. So, yeah, like, we just want to talk, and he's like, no, thank you. So the police hide in the hallway of the apartment building, and they wait for him to eventually leave his apartment, and once he does, they arrest him. So when he left the apartment, he was carrying a blood-stained box. He was wearing a parka and shoes that were blood-stained. And inside the box, police found shredded and blood-soaked wallpaper and a bloody gun. So it seems like he was trying to get rid of some evidence there. Finally thinking about the fact that he should dispose of some evidence now that the FBI is knocking on his door, apparently.
Yeah, or unless he's just, like, attached to these items, because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the wallpaper is about.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so as they're, like, patting him down, you know, like, seeing if he has any weapons on him and shit, they find Dan Meredith's wallet, so that also, like, directly links him to that crime. So the detectives perform a full search of Richard's apartment, and they find that the walls, the floor, the ceiling, the refrigerator, and all of his eating and drinking utensils were soaked in blood.
Oh, Jesus.
And on the counter, they find the blender that he had used to blend up various organs to make his little smoothies. The blender was absolutely fucking disgusting. It was caked in blood, and inside of it were remnants of rotting organs. And then inside the fridge, they found several animal body parts wrapped in tinfoil, as well as David's brains in a Tupperware container, as well as some pieces of his body wrapped in saran wrap, and several of Evelyn and Teresa's internal organs. He was like, can I get a takeout box? Can I get, like, a box to go? And he took it home.
Oh my god, dude.
And also, like, he's still killing animals at this point. Like, I know he killed those dogs, but, like, Jesus, guy.
I think he just wants the blood, you know?
Yeah, but it's like, if you just wanted the blood, why wouldn't you just keep killing animals? Like, not that you should do that. No one should do that, but I'm just saying. But yeah, and then on the kitchen table, he had a bunch of diagrams spread out that showed, like, different aspects of human biology. So it was obvious he had been, like...
I'm weak. I'm unwell.
Researching it. Yeah.
You know how I am with blood.
I'm so sorry.
I'm not well.
I know.
Why'd
The
you
thing
do
with the
this?
pulmonary artery, I was like,
That was
oh,
like
God.
that was the first part of this freaking episode when you said that. I was like, oh no,
That was like the worst part though, as far as like the word choice being
blood,
bad.
all the blood stuff is making me like woozy over here.
I'm so sorry. It's almost over, I swear.
You want to know a fun fact though? So
Yeah.
like with phobias, like normally with phobias people have like quickened heart rate and like things like this, and like like you're allergic to spiders or like heights or something, and your like heart starts racing, or like you get like,
You just said allergic to
oh my
spiders or heights.
god,
I'm allergic to heights.
I'm allergic to heights. When people are afraid of spiders or heights or snakes or whatever, and it's like pretty much all phobias, it has the same like physical reaction, like quickened heart rate and things like that.
Yeah.
But if you have like a phobia of blood or like kind of like that thing, it's like a different physical reaction. And this is like biological, because your heart rate, if you're bleeding, then it'd be more beneficial for your heart rate to slow down so you don't lose as much blood. And when people pass out, no, seriously, this is a real thing.
Dude, you saying this is like making me feel like I'm gonna
Okay,
pass
well,
out.
you deserve it. So, and when people pass out, it helps because then they're horizontal, and so they're not also like their heart isn't pumping, and like you're not losing as much blood. So like that's why.
So your body thinks that if you're scared of blood, you're probably bleeding.
No, it's like a biological, like evolutionary thing, because like back in the day, like, you know what I mean, like when things are evolutionary where people kind of change based on that. So like if people were getting attacked and they were bleeding and they pass out, they're more likely to survive. So it just kind of gets passed. It's kind of the same thing with like people that were with spiders. People died from poisonous spiders. So now it kind of gets passed on, and now people are afraid of spiders because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is like the thing. It's like, if you pass out and you're horizontal, or like if your heart rate slows, you won't lose as much blood, so you're more likely to survive. And like that's the only phobia where like it has that physical reaction. Every other phobia, it's like quickened heart rate,
That's so weird.
But like it makes so much sense. And now I'm like, I understand it now, but like it still doesn't help the fact that I'm almost fainting right now. But like we're making it through.
Yeah, you know when you like feel like you're gonna pass out and you like laugh because like you feel like you're like. You know what I mean?
Right
like
now.
that's what just happened to me. Like I burst out giggling because I was like unwell. But most of that kind of stuff is over with at this point.
Okay.
Or all of it is pretty
Okay,
much.
thank
So
God.
now we're just gonna talk about what happens with
Now I just need
like
to recover.
him getting in trouble. So in 1979 he stands trial on 6 counts of murder. And in order to avoid the death penalty, his defense tried to have him found guilty of second-degree murder instead of first, which would result in a life sentence rather than the death penalty. And their case was based on Richard's history of mental illness and the lack of planning in his crimes, which we talked a little bit about. They showed some evidence that the crimes were not premeditated. So, you know, if the crimes aren't premeditated, you can't be found guilty of first-degree murder.
Yeah.
But even though the defense was like showing all this evidence and shit, on May 8th, the jury found Richard guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder.
Okay, wow.
So the defense then asked for a clemency hearing, and the judge was like, Richard is not legally insane, and therefore he's sentenced to die in a gas chamber.
Wait, what's a clemency hearing?
And I don't-
Is that for mental health?
It's basically like appealing it, kind of. Like, it's like a different kind of appealing it where they're like, they want you to change the sentence or change the terms that the judge like agreed upon.
Okay.
Like, it's basically being like, take another look at that.
Okay. It's just like
reevaluate.
basically appealing the sentence.
Yeah, kind of, but appealing's different in the sense that it goes to a completely different like court and everything.
Oh, okay.
So
I
yeah,
see.
but he basically the judge or the defense was just like, "Are you sure about that?"
Yeah.
And the judge was like, "Yes,
Yeah.
I am." So the judge is like, "He's not legally insane, and therefore he's gonna die in a gas chamber." And I don't know if the judge like only deemed him not legally insane so that he could get the death sentence or what, but like, this man was definitely legally insane in my
it's very
book.
obvious.
So I'm guessing it was just for like the formality of it so that he could get the death sentence.
Yeah, either that or maybe back in the day they didn't really like give as much weight to that or pay attention to it as much. They were probably like, oh, yeah, I'll bet. You know what I mean?
I'll bet you're insane, bro.
I'll bet. Yeah, so...
Yeah, so... I don't know, but they were like, he's not crazy, which, like, he's crazy. But anyways, they pretty much just wanted him to die, so that's why they decided that. So while he's in prison, he's on death row waiting to be executed, so he's just chilling in prison for a while. All the other inmates are, like, fucking terrified of him because they, like, found out about the graphic, like, and crazy fucking crimes that he's committed. And they even tried to convince Richard to commit suicide because, this is according to prison officials, because they were too scared to get too close to him just to kill themselves.
Okay, I was wondering about that. I was like, why wouldn't they just...
They wanted to kill him, but they were too scared. Yeah. They were too scared to even get near him.
Whoa.
So, yeah. And then while he was on death row as well, he did a couple of interviews, and he spoke of his fear of Nazis and UFOs. And he claimed that although he had killed people, it was not his fault because he had been forced to kill to keep himself alive, which he believed that anyone would do that.
Yeah, so he's, like, very delusional.
Yeah, so he's literally saying, I was forced to kill, otherwise I was gonna die.
Yeah, so he probably thought,
and then
just
something
kind of like
about
the
Nazis
thing
and UFOs.
back when he thought that eating the little cocktail smoothie of, like, animals' bowels was gonna make his heart not shrink. He probably thought that, you know, drinking people's blood was gonna make him not die or something like that. Yeah,
something with Nazis and UFOs.
Yeah, that part I don't really know. Add that in there.
Well, then he asked the interview if they could give him access to a radar gun so that he could apprehend the Nazi UFOs so that the Nazis could stand trial for the murder.
So it wasn't Nazis and UFOs, it was Nazi UFOs.
Well, it was Nazis and UFOs, but also
the Nazis were also
Nazis
on the UFO.
in UFOs.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, yeah, he basically thought that the prison officials were, like, in cahoots with the Nazis and that they were planning to kill him.
Wow. Okay, yeah, I feel like he definitely had schizophrenia.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then this is my all-time favorite part of the entire thing. I literally laughed out loud when I read this. Because, like, I'm reading all this stuff that's, like, so fucked, right? And then it just says, he also handed the interviewer handfuls of macaroni and cheese that he'd been hoarding in his pants pocket. He was hoarding mac and cheese in his pants pockets, and he just handed some to the interviewer.
That's so nice.
Just handfuls of it.
That's so nice.
Can you imagine being the interviewer? You're like,
thanks. You're like, oh god, thank you, I'm so hungry.
This is my humble offering to you. But yeah, so that's my favorite part.
Oh my god. Okay.
But yeah, so then, besides that, December 26th of 1980, a guard is doing cell checks, and they found Richard dead in his bed. The autopsy determined that he had committed suicide by overdose of prison doctor-prescribed antidepressants, because he'd been saving them up for the past few weeks so that he could do
just,
it.
like, probably hide it in under his tongue or something.
Is how he died.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the end of the story of Richard Chase, the Vampire of Sacramento. That's, like, his whole life right there. That's a synopsis of his life.
Wow.
And I'm sure there are so many other things that he's done.
Right. It's like all the time that, you know, wasn't documented, or all the things that he was just never caught
like, he wasn't just chilling for those parts.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or the things that he did that weren't via gun, you know, where there wasn't, like, a bullet evidence, or, you know, stuff like that.
Or, like, no one saw him do it. Or he didn't admit it.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
Whatever he did while he was living alone, who knows?
Yeah. Or, like, I wonder what else he did when he was living with those roommates, too. Like, imagine what else they saw, you know, while living with him.
Ugh, I don't even want to know. But we made it through. You survived.
Yeah, I almost passed
Proud
out,
of you.
I will say that, but I was sitting here with my head down.
Here's my question.
Because I was like...
Here's my question. Was it as bad as you expected? Or was it worse?
Honestly, no. It wasn't... Well, I didn't really know what to expect. I was pretty terrified, to be honest. Like, the way that you were building it up. But it was horrific, yes. But I think I don't know, for some reason I was just like, it was probably as it
well, I purposely built it up
bit,
because I was
either as bad as I expected or a little bit less bad. I'll say that. It wasn't worse than I expected, that's for sure, which is good.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good.
I was really bracing
I was
myself.
just scared that, like, we would start recording and you'd be like, stop, we can't do this anymore.
Well, what if I like passed out on like FaceTime? You just see me like fall over.
I was thinking of that when you were when you were explaining the thing about like how people's heart rate like slows down and stuff, and then I giggled. I was thinking about, because I felt like I was gonna pass out, I was thinking about like, what if all of a sudden we both passed out and the microphone just picks up like a thud and you're just on FaceTime like,
we
hey,
both pass out and it's just like dead air.
God, dead air. Nice.
Just silence.
No, I know.
Dead air. No pun intended.
Dead air.
Dead
yeah,
air.
so that is the story of the Sacramento vampire, the Vampire of Sacramento.
Yeah, wow, I'm honestly kind of like speechless. Like, I don't even know what to say about it. It's just...
You know what I don't get? You've never heard of this, correct?
Yeah, right. I have never heard of it.
Why does no one talk? Do you understand now why I'm saying, why does no one talk about this?
Is it
like,
just because
people
maybe
are like, oh.
I mean, yeah, it's very intense. I wonder if it's because he, like, in comparison to other serial killers, he didn't kill that many people. Is that why?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know, because... like, there's stuff about Jeffrey Dahmer all the time.
I was thinking
he was
about
a cannibal.
that.
He ate people, but
I mean, similar things.
it's like, this guy arguably did more than that. Like, he blended shit up, drank it, all this shit. Like, yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer killed more people, but I don't know. It's just interesting to me that it's not really a well-known thing.
And due to that, I'm thinking, like, how many other people have done similar things to a handful of people, and then,
dude,
you know what I mean?
God. Yikes. Please, hopefully
not to scare anyone
none.
more, but I don't know, that's like the thought that came to my
Not to
head.
scare you guys, but there's probably someone in your neighborhood who's harvesting their neighbor's blood and drinking it and then making it into a smoothie with Coca-Cola. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts, final comments, concerns, questions?
No, it just like makes you think a lot about like the mental health aspect of it too. I mean, obviously, like, I'm always.
I know that's another reason why I wanted
but...
to. Yeah, that's another reason why I wanted to like tell you about it, because I wanted to see if you had any like interesting, stuff to say about it, because it's very much rooted in mental health.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like a lot of people that end up being abusive are abused, and like it just it just shows like the cycle of that for sure, and then someone who like tried to get help and wasn't able to, and then it just escalates and escalates and escalates.
That part makes me so upset.
And then also the fact that he was actually in an inpatient facility, and then they released him when they really shouldn't have, and then put trust into someone to like be a support for him at home, and then, which was his mom, and then she didn't do like what she was supposed to do either. It's just like all these points where it's like it could have been prevented, it seems like, you know what I mean? And then it's just like one thing after another, and then it just keeps building and building. And then honestly, like, I feel bad for people sometimes, because it's like they obviously didn't, things happened to them in their life that made them do this, especially for him. It's like he was obviously delusional, like having all these things like from such a young age too. So it's like,
what makes me so sad is that like he went to get help at one point and they didn't help him.
Right.
Like, I don't know, it just goes to show how important like that kind of stuff is, and how important it is to like listen to people if they reach out to you and tell you that something's not okay. Yeah. Like he went to get help way before he actually killed a human being.
Right.
And that could have been stopped, or it would have been stopped if they kept him in the institution or the facility, whatever.
Right.
You
I mean, that's what I was
it,
thining too.
For
like,
a longer period of time.
It also goes to show how far mental health treatment has come since then too, because like nowadays, like I deal with like cases of inpatient every day, and it's like if someone was having like psychotic symptoms like that, like they wouldn't just be like, okay, go home. You know, like there's like no way in hell.
Yeah, like if they were reaching out the window and breaking birds' necks and drinking their
and
blood.
then like having delusions still, like saying all this stuff, like oh my god.
Yeah, it makes me grateful that mental health is taken more seriously now, but I know that it's still not taken as seriously as it should be. But this is one of those things where you're like, wake up call, everyone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many layers to the story, and then just to think that was basically his whole life. It's just like, like it's sad. It's sad for him, and then it's sad for all the victims, obviously, like so much so. But also just like him just kind of being like the root of the story. It's sad because it's like he obviously wasn't just like someone that was doing it out of like malicious intent. Like he probably believed that like he was gonna die or else. You know what I mean? You know, like
like I still hate him, and I think he's a demon. But, like,
I mean, it doesn't change the fact that
like
he
I'm
did
not like I don't want it to
things.
sound like I'm like defending him, but
no, but I think there's something to say for like people who are, like people like him that are obviously like mentally disturbed, have severe mental disorders, and it's like
I agree.
So wow, a very interesting story. I'm glad I didn't faint, honestly.
Me too. And if this episode wasn't your thing, just know that it's gonna get better.
I mean, next week I'm presenting, and we all know I'm not gonna pick something like that.
No, she's not gonna do this. So, just keep in mind, we got it over with. I was gonna do this at some point, and it had to be now. It just did.
I'm glad we just kind of like got through it, got it over with. It was still very interesting. I'm glad that I heard about it. You know, like, it's like,
oh god, yeah,
it's very unique. You know, it's not like you hear about that all the time.
Exactly.
In true crime. So
if it was just like, I don't know, if it was just like a bunch of rapes and sexual assault and stuff like that, it's like I would never, be like, this is the really interesting thing that no one talks about. But like, there's so many layers, like the abuse, the mental illness, the blood thing, the hypochondria, everything like that is just like compiled together. It gives you a lot to think about.
It really does.
I will say that.
Yeah, it does. Much to think about.
But I hope you guys, I can't really say enjoyed the episode, but I hope you guys didn't hate it. I hope you didn't pass out. If you're passed out right now, I hope you wake up soon.
Apologies.
But yeah, so definitely tune in next episode because things will be more mellow, I promise. Sabrina will be captain of the ship, and nothing of this sort will be happening. So yeah, and do you want to say our like other stuff? Instagram and shit?
Yeah. So I was gonna say we may or may not skip next week because of the holidays, but I guess we'll see, or we won't see. We'll see what happens. But if you will please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform, we'd greatly appreciate that. And if you haven't followed us on Instagram yet, follow us at Bloodline Podcast on Instagram. We post a bunch of stuff about our episodes there and post stories, so you can always get the latest updates on when we're posting new episodes and see pictures and quotes and stuff from the episodes that we've already done. And yeah, if you like us, please rate, comment, and subscribe to us, and we will,
if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. And if you've already smashed that subscribe button, smash that bell notification to get new notifications every single time I post a new video.
Okay, actually, speaking of that, we actually are on
YouTube channel.
Not even joking, we're on YouTube, not a video, but just the podcasts. And also uploaded to YouTube, so if you for some reason want to listen on YouTube, that's another option.
Yeah. We trying to make this shit accessible, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But anyways, we will talk to you soon, either next week or the week after, depending on what the holidays bring. But either way, thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.